I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. My name is Tom, and I was living what I thought was a happy life with my wife, Jennifer. We had been married for 6 years, and on the surface, everything looked perfect. We had a cozy little home in the suburbs, a dog named Max, and a solid routine that kept us grounded. We both had good jobs, me as an IT consultant and her as a marketing manager. Sure, we had our ups and downs like any couple, but I believed we had a strong foundation. Little did I know, beneath that facade, things were crumbling. The first signs of trouble started surfacing about a month before my world came crashing down. Jennifer began to change. She was more distant, spending late nights at work and coming home with a different scent, one that wasn't hers. I remember the first time I noticed it. It was a Saturday, and she was getting ready for a work dinner. When she walked past me, I caught a whiff of a perfume I had never smelled on her before. I didn't think too much of it at the time. Maybe it was a new scent or one of those promotional samples from work. But the odd behavior didn't stop there. She started spending more time on her phone, texting late into the night. I'd catch glimpses of her screen, but she always seemed to shield it from me, laughing at something that I wasn't a part of. I tried to brush it off as paranoia, but deep down, I felt the gnawing sensation of doubt creeping in. Friends of ours would mention how they hadn't seen us together lately, and Jennifer would just laugh it off, claiming work was keeping us busy. Then came the fateful day that shattered my reality. I was going through some old boxes in the attic, trying to declutter our space, when I stumbled upon an envelope marked "Confidential" from our doctor's office. My heart raced as I opened it, expecting mundane health information. Instead, what I found inside was a series of appointment reminders that didn't match my records. The name on the appointments was none other than Jennifer's. Confusion turned to rage as I connected the dots. Our family doctor, Dr. Ryan, had been her trusted friend for years, someone she'd often joked about loving more than me when he helped her with her migraines or other minor ailments. It was a joke at the time, but as I stared at those appointment reminders, something in me shattered. I realized that Jennifer had been lying to me, and the truth was finally beginning to surface. I confronted her that very night. When she walked through the door, I could see the surprise on her face. I tossed the envelope onto the dining table and asked her straight out if she was seeing Dr. Ryan. The shock on her face was evident, but it quickly morphed into anger. "How could you go through my things, Tom?" she shouted, her voice rising. "It's not about that, it's about what you're doing behind my back." I replied, my heart pounding in my chest. She stammered through an explanation that was filled with so many lies that I could hardly keep track. "It's not what it looks like. He's just been helping me with my migraines, and I didn't want to worry you." I didn't buy it. The betrayal cut deeper than I ever thought possible. I watched her flail for excuses, her eyes darting, and it was clear she was grasping at straws. All the trust I had in her was evaporating right before my eyes, replaced by a burning anger and a profound sense of loss. The emotional impact was like a tidal wave crashing over me. I felt the weight of betrayal pressing down as I mentally replayed the memories of our life together. As the reality set in, the sadness washed over me in waves. I thought of all those moments I had cherished, now tainted with this new knowledge. It was as if I was living in a nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. Standing in that living room, I felt a mix of anger and sorrow. I realized that my whole world was about to change, but I had to decide how to move forward. I could either give in to despair or take control of the situation. I had a plan forming in my mind, one that would not only address my anger but also ensure that Dr. Ryan faced consequences for his role in this betrayal. The journey of my emotional roller coaster was just beginning, and I knew deep down that revenge was calling my name. After that explosive confrontation with Jennifer, my mind was racing. I felt like I was stuck in a whirlwind of emotions: anger, sadness, betrayal, a toxic cocktail that threatened to drown me. It was hard to focus on anything else, but a single thought kept creeping into my mind: revenge. I knew I had to do something that would not only make me feel better but also ensure that Dr. Ryan faced the music for what he had done. I spent the next few days in a haze, trying to navigate my daily life while grappling with the betrayal. I avoided socializing and picked at my food like a bird, all while Jennifer pretended that everything was normal. She would occasionally try to talk to me, asking if we could work things out, but I was too consumed by my emotions to engage. Each time she'd call me honey or babe, it felt like a knife twisting in my gut. I was hurt, angry, and above all, motivated. I started digging into what I could do about Dr. Ryan. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how arrogant he must have been to cross that line. With a patient, I couldn't just let this slide. I wanted to make him suffer as much as I was, so I began gathering information. I reached out to some friends who were in the medical field, starting with my buddy Jake, who worked as a nurse. Over beers one night, I brought up Dr. Ryan, casually mentioning my concerns about his professionalism. Jake raised an eyebrow, clearly sensing my discomfort. I leaned in, lowering my voice. "I think he's sleeping with my wife." "Dude, no way," Jake exclaimed, nearly choking on his drink. I detailed the appointment reminders I had found, along with my suspicions about their late-night rendezvous. As I spoke, I could see the gears turning in Jake's head. He promised to look into it and get back to me. By the end of that week, I was armed with more than just emotional turmoil. I had a plan. Jake had gathered some intel, including the fact that there had been complaints about Dr. Ryan in the past related to inappropriate conduct with patients. It was just the fuel I needed. I started documenting everything: the appointment records, the text messages I'd caught Jennifer sending late at night, and my own personal experiences with Dr. Ryan over the years. I also made it a point to listen closely to Jennifer whenever she was on the phone. I could hear snippets of conversations. She would talk about how he was the best doctor and how comfortable she felt with him. It made my skin crawl. I no longer felt like I was just a betrayed husband. I felt like a detective on a mission to expose this man who had violated not only our marriage but also his oath as a physician. The day I decided to take action was nerve-wracking. I drove to the medical board's office, my heart pounding in my chest. I felt a mix of excitement and anxiety, wondering if I was really going to go through with it. I had everything lined up: a detailed account of my findings, screenshots of texts, and even a few contacts who were willing to testify against Dr. Ryan's behavior. It was surreal to think I was going to report a man who had once been a trusted part of my life. When I arrived, I was met by a secretary who looked like she'd seen it all. I took a deep breath and explained the situation, handing over my documentation. With every word I spoke, I felt a surge of power. This was it. I was taking back control. I was no longer the victim. I was the one dishing out justice. The secretary was professional and took notes, but I could see the concern in her eyes as I detailed my suspicions. She assured me that the board would investigate my claims thoroughly. When I left, a strange sense of relief washed over me. The weight of the world felt like it had lifted, even if just a little, but I knew I wasn't done yet. I still had to confront Jennifer again. There was no way I could let her think I was just going to forgive and forget. I needed her to know that I was taking this seriously, and that her actions had consequences, both for her and for Dr. Ryan. That evening, I sat her down for a talk. Her demeanor was relaxed at first, probably thinking that I was ready to move on from the confrontation. I opened with a calm voice. "I filed a complaint against Dr. Ryan today." Her face dropped, turning from casual chatter to shock in mere seconds. "What? You can't be serious," she exclaimed, the disbelief evident in her tone. "Oh, I'm very serious," I replied, trying to keep my composure. "You think he's just a trusted friend. He's been taking advantage of you, and you know what? I'm not going to let this slide." The anger that flickered in her eyes was unexpected. "You don't know what you're talking about. He helped me, and I never did anything with him," she defended, her voice rising in pitch. "Sure, keep telling yourself that," I shot back, my patience wearing thin. "You've betrayed me, and now you're defending him. Who's lying here?" The confrontation escalated, and for the first time I saw fear flash across her face. It was a small victory for me, but I knew that this was just the beginning of what would be a long, drawn-out battle. In that moment, as I watched her squirm, I felt a rush of empowerment. I wasn't just some passive husband blindly trusting his wife. I was actively fighting back. The journey toward revenge was well underway, and I couldn't wait to see how it would all unfold. As the days turned into weeks, the situation escalated in ways I couldn't have anticipated. After my confrontation with Jennifer about the complaint I filed against Dr. Ryan, things became even more tense between us. She was furious, but there was also a flicker of fear that kept her on edge. It was clear she had never expected me to take such decisive action, and that I was no longer just a passive victim in her world of lies. Jennifer spent a lot of time trying to repair the damage. She'd bring up topics that had once made us smile, attempting to lure me back into a state of comfort. "Remember that trip we took to the beach?" she'd say, her voice dripping with nostalgia. "We had so much fun, didn't we?" But I wasn't interested in reminiscing. Every smile, every laugh felt hollow, like a cruel reminder of the betrayal that had shattered my trust. I could see her trying to put on a brave face, but the cracks were beginning to show. She knew I was still gathering information, still plotting my next move, and that unnerved her. The guilt was evident in the way she avoided eye contact and how she would flinch whenever I entered a room. It was a strange dynamic. She had once felt in control, but now I held the reins, and she was losing her grip on the narrative. Meanwhile, the investigation into Dr. Ryan's conduct was progressing. The medical board reached out to me for more details, and I felt a sense of satisfaction every time I spoke with them. I relayed everything I had gathered, my findings, the documented complaints, and my own emotional turmoil. Each conversation felt like a step closer to justice, not just for me, but for the other patients who might have been affected by his unprofessional behavior. Then came the day I received a call from Jake. He had been following up on some leads for me, and when I saw his name pop up on my phone, I felt a mix of excitement and dread. "Hey Tom, you won't believe what I found out," he said, his tone serious. "Dr. Ryan has been under scrutiny for more than just your complaint. There are other allegations from different patients. It seems like he's been getting away with this." For a while, I felt a rush of vindication. This wasn't just about me, it was about exposing a predator hiding behind the guise of a trusted doctor. "What kind of allegations?" I pressed, eager to learn more. "Sexual misconduct," Jake replied. "Multiple patients have come forward, and the board is really taking this seriously. They're going to investigate all of it, and your report is just one piece of the puzzle." My heart raced. The sense of power I felt was intoxicating. I was not only fighting back for myself, but I was also part of a larger fight against someone who thought he could get away with manipulating people in vulnerable positions. I thanked Jake and hung up, my mind racing with the possibilities. When I returned home that evening, I noticed Jennifer sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, her expression vacant. I decided it was time to confront her again, to see just how much she knew and how she would react to the unfolding situation with Dr. Ryan. "Have you seen the news lately?" I asked, trying to gauge her reaction. She looked up, confusion etched on her face. "What news?" "About Dr. Ryan. Seems like he's been under investigation for some serious stuff," I said, watching her closely. Her eyes widened and I could see the panic setting in. "What are you talking about?" she stammered. I decided to press further. "You know, the allegations of sexual misconduct from other patients. It's not just me anymore. It seems like he's been doing this for a while." For a moment, she looked like a deer caught in headlights. "That can't be true," she muttered, but I could hear the tremor in her voice. "He's a good doctor. He would never do something like that." I leaned closer, my voice low but firm. "You might want to reconsider that. You've put your trust in him, and he's been betraying that trust. How does it feel to know that you might be just another name on a long list of victims?" I watched as she struggled to find words, her defenses crumbling. There was a moment of silence before she finally spoke. "I didn't mean for it to happen, Tom. I was confused and he made me feel special. I thought it was harmless." The admission hit me like a punch to the gut. Harmless? You think cheating is harmless? You think leading a double life is okay because he made you feel good about yourself? I couldn't believe how easily she tried to deflect responsibility. "I never wanted to hurt you," she cried, tears streaming down her face. "It just happened. I needed someone to listen to me, and he was there." The anger inside me was bubbling over, but I found a strange sense of calm. "You had me, Jennifer. I was always here, yet you chose him. I stood up, pacing the room. You think this is just going to blow over? I'm not interested in your excuses. You've betrayed me in a way I can never forgive. She looked at me, desperation in her eyes. I'm sorry, I'll do anything to fix this. I'll cut ties with him, I swear. I shook my head, feeling the emotional toll weighing heavily on me. The damage is done, Jennifer. You've lost my trust, and I don't know if I can ever get it back. As she sat there, sobbing and pleading, I realized that this was more than just about revenge on Dr. Ryan. It was about reclaiming my dignity, my self-worth. I was no longer the passive husband, the one who turned a blind eye to the cracks in our marriage. I was taking a stand. The next day, I received a follow-up from the medical board. They were moving forward with the investigation, and they wanted to know if I could provide any more evidence. I agreed to meet them, knowing this was my chance to ensure Dr. Ryan faced the consequences he deserved. As I prepared for the meeting, I realized that this was a turning point for me. No matter what happened with Jennifer, I was committed to standing up for myself and others who had been wronged. The journey to reclaim my life had only just begun. The day of the meeting with the medical board was filled with anticipation and anxiety. I spent the night before going over my notes, rehearsing what I wanted to say, and trying to mentally prepare myself for the encounter. I felt a mix of fear and excitement. I was about to confront the very institution that had protected Dr. Ryan for too long. I wanted to be clear and concise about my experience and the evidence I had gathered. As I walked into the board's office, I noticed the sterile environment, gray walls, bright fluorescent lighting, and a long table surrounded by serious-looking individuals in suits. They greeted me with somber expressions, and my heart raced as I took a seat. This was it. I was about to make my case, not just for myself, but for all the other victims of Dr. Ryan's misconduct. The chairperson introduced herself and the board members, and then we dove into the discussion. I recounted my experience with Dr. Ryan, focusing on the invasive nature of his behavior and what I had discovered about his interactions with Jennifer. I could see the board members taking notes, their expressions shifting from neutrality to concern as I shared my story. What you are describing is deeply troubling, one member interjected. We take allegations of this nature very seriously, and your testimony will certainly contribute to the investigation. As I laid out the facts and handed over my documentation, I felt a sense of empowerment. This was my moment. I explained how Jennifer had become entangled in an affair with someone who had a duty to care for her well-being, not exploit her vulnerabilities. I could feel the weight of my words pushing through the room, resonating with the board members who were beginning to understand the depth of the situation. After I finished presenting my case, I allowed myself a moment to breathe. The board members exchanged glances, and I could see the gravity of the situation settling in. They asked me a series of questions, digging deeper into the timeline of events and any other details I could provide. I answered each question with precision, fueled by a mix of anger and determination. Finally, one of the board members spoke up. "Tom, we appreciate your courage in coming forward. We have heard similar allegations from other patients. This is becoming a pattern that cannot be ignored. We will ensure that a thorough investigation is conducted, and we will keep you updated on any developments." I left the board's office feeling a mix of triumph and exhaustion. I had done what I set out to do, and for the first time since discovering Jennifer's infidelity, I felt like I was reclaiming my life. However, I knew this was just the beginning of a long road ahead. I still needed to confront Jennifer about the investigation and what it meant for our future. When I walked through the door of our home, I found Jennifer waiting for me, her expression a mixture of apprehension and hope. "How did it go?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "It went well," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. "They're taking the allegations seriously, and they're launching a full investigation." Her face paled, and I could see the realization hit her. "What does this mean for Dr. Ryan?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I looked her straight in the eye. "It means he's going to be held accountable for his actions. And it means you need to start thinking about what you want for yourself and what you want from this marriage." The tension in the room was palpable. She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it again, struggling to find the right words. I could see the uncertainty etched on her face. Tom, I never meant for any of this to happen. I didn't think it was that serious. I thought I could keep it under wraps. I felt a surge of anger rise within me. Keep it under wraps? You think it's that simple? You've risked everything, Jennifer. I don't know if I can ever trust you again. She stepped closer, desperation in her eyes. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to fix this. I'll cut ties with him, I promise. I'll go to therapy, anything. I shook my head, trying to process everything I was feeling. It's not just about fixing things. You need to understand the gravity of what you've done. You've betrayed not just me, but your own integrity. Please, Tom, I'm scared. I don't want to lose you, she pleaded, tears streaming down her cheeks. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. You might have already lost me, Jennifer. Trust isn't something that can be easily repaired. I need time to think about what I want. The tension hung heavily between us. I walked away, needing space to collect my thoughts. I couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had led us here. The love I once felt for her was now clouded by anger and betrayal. But there was also a small part of me that remembered the good times, the moments that had once defined our relationship. As I lay in bed that night, my mind raced with questions. Could I ever forgive her? Was it worth trying to rebuild what we had? Or was it time to cut my losses and move on? Each question only deepened my internal conflict. The investigation into Dr. Ryan was just beginning, but the fallout from this betrayal was far from over. I was on a path of self-discovery, and the choices I made in the coming days would determine the course of my life. Would I ever get back the trust I had lost? Only time would tell. As I closed my eyes, I felt an unsettling mix of hope and despair wash over me, knowing that the journey ahead would be long and complicated. The following weeks were a whirlwind of emotions and uncertainty. I had filed the complaint against Dr. Ryan, and the investigation was underway, but the real turmoil was happening at home. Jennifer and I were living in the same space but feeling worlds apart. The tension was palpable. We were like two strangers forced to share a house, a bond that had once felt so strong now frayed and fragile. Jennifer had tried to reach out to me in various ways, small gestures like cooking my favorite meals, leaving little notes around the house, or sending heartfelt text messages. Each attempt felt like a dagger, reminding me of the love we once shared. Yet every time I looked at her, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. Her actions had been a betrayal of the worst kind. It was as if she had taken a scalpel and carved out a piece of my trust, leaving a gaping hole in its place. I found myself avoiding conversations with her. I'd come home from work, toss my keys on the counter, and retreat to my office. I spent hours lost in my thoughts, scrolling through articles about infidelity and relationships, trying to make sense of my own situation. I wanted to know if others had managed to rebuild after such devastating betrayals, but every story seemed to echo my fears. The road to recovery was long, painful, and fraught with complications. One evening, I decided to take a walk to clear my mind. As I strolled through the nearby park, I noticed couples laughing and sharing affectionate moments, and I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of longing. I missed the intimacy Jennifer and I once had, but that intimacy felt tainted by her recent actions. It was hard to imagine ever getting back to that place. When I returned home, I found Jennifer sitting on the couch, her eyes red and puffy from crying. It broke my heart to see her like that, but I couldn't let that cloud my judgment. I've been thinking, she said, her voice shaky. I don't want to lose you, Tom. I'm willing to do anything. Anything, I replied, crossing my arms. You've already shown me how easily you can betray my trust. Why should I believe you now? Because I'm willing to go to therapy, she said, desperation lacing her tone. I'll do the work. I'll figure out why I made those choices. I want to understand what went wrong and fix it. I looked at her, torn between the love I once felt and the pain she had caused. I can't just flip a switch and forget what you've done, Jennifer. You've broken something that can't be easily repaired. I know, she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper, but I need you to know that I regret every single moment of that affair. I thought I was looking for something, but all I found was heartbreak for both of us. Her honesty was disarming. I could see that she was genuinely remorseful, but I was still wrestling with my own feelings. Could I really put aside the hurt and betrayal? Was it worth trying to salvage our marriage when the foundation felt so shaky? Over the next few days, as I wrestled with my thoughts, I finally reached out to my therapist, hoping to gain some clarity. I shared everything that had happened with Jennifer and the turmoil I was experiencing. "Tom," my therapist said, her voice calm and reassuring, "healing takes time. It's okay to feel conflicted. You need to consider what's best for your mental and emotional well-being." I took her words to heart, reminding myself that I didn't have to make any decisions in haste. It was okay to step back and assess my feelings without the pressure of immediate action. After all, I had been through a lot, and I owed it to myself to process the betrayal thoroughly. Then came the pivotal moment. I received a call from the medical board about Dr. Ryan's investigation. They informed me that they had gathered enough evidence from multiple patients to pursue disciplinary action against him. Hearing that felt like a weight lifting off my shoulders. It validated my feelings and reinforced that I was on the right path. But amidst the news, I also felt a nagging voice in the back of my mind. Thoughts about Jennifer's potential return to my life, her earnest desire to repair our marriage, and whether I would ever truly be able to forgive her. I knew I had to address this head-on, and it was time for another serious conversation. That night, I sat Jennifer down again. "We need to talk about what happens next," I said, my heart racing. She looked up at me, anticipation and fear dancing in her eyes. "I want to understand what you're feeling, Tom. I need to hear it," she said, her voice trembling. "I feel betrayed," I admitted, searching for the right words. "I feel lost. I don't want to live in this limbo forever. I need to know if we're going to work on our marriage or if I should start thinking about moving on." Jennifer nodded, her expression serious. "I can't change the past, but I can commit to making things right. I want to go to therapy together to rebuild our trust. I want to understand what led to my choices, and I want you to feel safe with me again." As I listened to her, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe there was a path forward, but it wouldn't be easy. "I'm willing to try therapy," I said cautiously. "But you need to understand that it's going to take time, and you have to be committed to this too. I need to see real change." "I promise you I'll do the work," she said, tears in her eyes. "I want to rebuild what we had and create something stronger." We both knew that the road ahead would be challenging. I wasn't expecting miracles overnight, but I was willing to take the first step toward healing. It was a small victory, but it was a victory nonetheless. That night I lay in bed reflecting on our conversation. The journey to rebuild trust would take effort from both of us, and there would be bumps along the way. But maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for us to emerge stronger from this painful experience. As I drifted off to sleep, I realized that the fight for my marriage was just beginning. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a while, I felt a glimmer of hope. The weeks following our pivotal conversation marked the beginning of a new chapter for both Jennifer and me. We started attending therapy together, and while the sessions were often uncomfortable, they were necessary. Opening up about our feelings in a safe environment forced us to confront the raw emotions that had been brewing beneath the surface for far too long. In therapy, Jennifer began to peel back the layers of her actions. She shared stories from her childhood, experiences that had shaped her sense of self-worth and led to her actions during the affair. It was difficult to hear, but I realized that understanding her motivations was crucial to rebuilding our relationship. The more we talked, the clearer it became that her betrayal stemmed from her own insecurities rather than a lack of love for me. At the same time, I began to recognize my own role in our relationship. As much as I wanted to cast blame solely on her for the affair, I had also been neglecting my emotional needs. I had become so focused on work and routine that I hadn't noticed the walls slowly building around us. Therapy helped me articulate my feelings and express my needs more clearly, which was something I had struggled with for years. One evening, after a particularly intense therapy session, we came home and sat on the porch, watching the sunset. The air was thick with unspoken words, but something felt different. "I'm grateful we're doing this," I said, breaking the silence. I feel like I'm getting to know you again, and it's refreshing." Jennifer smiled softly, her expression reflecting a mix of hope and vulnerability. "Me too. I've realized how much I took for granted, and I'm really committed to making this work. I don't want to lose you." As we talked, I felt a shift in our dynamic. The tension that had once defined our interactions began to dissolve, replaced by a new understanding and renewed affection. While we were still tackling the aftermath of her betrayal, we were also forging a path toward healing. I also kept in close contact with the medical board regarding Dr. Ryan's case. The investigation was progressing, and I learned that he was facing serious consequences for his actions. Hearing that justice was being served felt like a weight off my shoulders. I no longer felt the need to seek revenge personally. The system was taking care of it for me. I focused on my own healing and the work I had to do to rebuild my life. As months passed, the atmosphere in our home transformed. We began to reconnect in ways I thought were lost forever. Simple moments, cooking together, taking long walks, or just sitting in silence, began to feel meaningful again. I rediscovered the laughter and joy that had initially drawn us together, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of peace. But I also knew that the road ahead would not be without challenges. Trust was not something that could be rebuilt overnight. It was a journey we would have to navigate together. There were still moments of doubt, instances where I would catch myself second-guessing her intentions or replaying the memories of her betrayal in my mind. But Jennifer was committed to transparency, and we made a pact to communicate openly about our feelings. I found myself sharing my insecurities and fears, and Jennifer listened without judgment. She would reassure me, reminding me that she was dedicated to our marriage and working hard to earn back my trust. In turn, I made an effort to affirm her commitment and express gratitude for the changes I saw in her. It was a two-way street, and both of us had to put in the effort if we were going to make it work. Eventually, our efforts began to pay off. One Sunday morning, as we sat together sipping coffee and enjoying each other's company, I realized that the bond we once had was slowly being mended. We laughed about our favorite shows and shared dreams for the future. I felt a sense of hope that I hadn't experienced since the affair came to light. Months later, I remember sitting in therapy when my therapist asked, "How do you feel about your relationship now?" I looked at Jennifer, who was smiling at me, and I felt an overwhelming wave of warmth. "I feel like we're on a new journey together. It's not perfect, but I see the effort and I'm willing to fight for us." After the session, Jennifer took my hand, and for the first time in what felt like ages, I felt the warmth of her touch without the shadows of betrayal clouding my heart. We walked out of the office together, side by side, ready to embrace whatever challenges lay ahead. Looking back on this entire experience, I've learned that relationships are complicated. Trust can be shattered, but it can also be rebuilt with effort, communication, and a willingness to grow. It's a conscious choice to face the pain and work through it together, and I'm proud of the progress we've made. In the end, I don't know what the future holds for us. We've embarked on a journey filled with uncertainties, but we're doing it together, and that's what truly matters. I've learned that love can endure even the darkest moments if both parties are willing to fight for it. As we face the future, I feel hopeful. We've come a long way, and while the scars will always remain, they serve as reminders of our resilience and the strength of our commitment to each other. And that, in itself, is a victory worth celebrating.